We have another build request, our second in a row. This is one is for Sequana 25. Build requests are the most fun for Sabeel and I, and this one is exciting for me because it's very similar to a character I'm playing. He wants a Githzeri rogue, space pirate with the lucky feat. Zapiel's nephew is running a pirate campaign, and my character is a rogue sorcerer. Now, we've already done a rogue sorcerer space pirate, and Zapiel will put the link up here. But this one will be quite a bit different. The character we're making is suitable for a space pirate, but is also perfect for an ocean-going campaign, and we hope you enjoy it. Hi everyone, and welcome to a swashbuckling episode of The Dungeon Crashers. I'm Guy.
And I'm Zapiel. Before we get started, remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And if you haven't already, turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our exciting D&D content. Since this character is going to be a Githzeri, we will talk about the race first. The Githzeri are a race of extraplanar entities from Limbo. The Githzeri, or Githzeri, like their kin, the Githyanki, are descended from a race that were enslaved by the Mind Flayers until they rebelled and earned their freedom. Afterwards, they split into two factions and fought amongst themselves. The Githzeri took up residence on a plane of Limbo, but contrary to the chaos of that plane, the Githzeri are lawful and organized, often being monks or other disciplined occupations. While the majority of their people reside in Limbo, many travel the planes and live lives apart from their people, and some, like our hero, assimilate to other cultures. Githzeri are humanoid and medium-sized with a movement speed of 30 feet. They have mental discipline, which grants them advantage on saves to resist or end the charmed or frightened condition, and psychic resilience, giving them resistance to psychic damage. They also have natural psychic abilities. They know the mage hand cantrip, and when they use it, the hand is invisible. At 3rd level, they gain the shield spell, and at 5th, they learn the detect thought spell. They can cast these spells once per day without using a spell slot, and can cast them with any spell slots they have. The casting ability for these spells is Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma, and our hero is choosing Charisma. They also speak common and one language of their choice. Githzeri have their own language, which is the dialect of the language which is often spoken by the Githyanki enemies, and we are taking that. Since we are using material from Big B's Glory of the Giants, we are going to take the giant foundling background. While traveling the plains, our hero's parents were killed in battle, fighting against an evil titan alongside a storm giant warrior. Seeing our hero orphaned, the giant took the child in. Despite his small size by giant standards, the child proved to have a great deal of inner strength that impressed the giant, who encouraged the child's natural abilities. The giant was pleased when the child showed an affinity for the power of the storm. The child was also inquisitive and clever, and his foster parent let him explore and develop his skills. Watching the child became charming and adept with tools and puzzles. The background gives the skills Intimidation and Survival. It also gives him the ability to speak Giant and another language of his choice, and we are going to modify the background a little and trade the extra language with proficiency with navigation tools. His affinity for wind and weather led him to study the ways of the sailor, and he longed to go to sea. The background also gives the strike of the giant's feat. When taking this feat, he chooses a type of giant that raised him, and that is the storm giant, which gives him storm strike. Once per turn, when he hits a target with a melee or thrown weapon, he adds a d6 lightning damage to the target, and it must make a constitution save or have disadvantage on all their attack rolls until the start of his next turn. Githzeri get the ability score boosts common with the newer races, which are 3 + 1 bonuses that you can put anywhere you want, but no more than 2 on the same ability. We are using the point buy, and we put an 8 on strength, a 15 on dexterity, making it 16 with 1 bonus point, a 13 on Constitution, making it 14 with the next bonus point. We put a 10 on both Intelligence and Wisdom, and we put a 15 on Charisma, making it 16 with the last bonus point.
Our hero begins play as a rogue. When multiclassing with rogue, it's best to start as a rogue, unless you have a good reason not to. The extra skills are almost always worth it. This will give proficiency with light armor, simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords. He also gets proficiencies with thieves' tools and dexterity and intelligence saves. The one drawback of starting as a rogue is not getting constitution saves, but the trade-off is worth it. He gets 4 skills from the rogue list and takes persuasion, perception, deception, and investigation. He can expertise 2 skills and he chooses perception and persuasion. He knows Thieves' Cant, which is a language of slang and code that can be understood by other rogues. It can also be used to write coded messages. The language is mixed in with normal conversation so that a standard listener won't know that another language is being spoken. He also knows Sneak Attack. If he has advantage on an attack roll or an ally within 5 feet of the target, he can add 1d6 to the damage of that attack. He can only apply this to one attack per turn. Combined with his Storm Strike, he's going to have a very strong melee attack. He can also use this with a ranged or thrown weapon, so a thrown dagger or dart will also add this and his Storm Strike. His starting equipment is a rapier, a pair of daggers, and some darts. He wears studded leather armor and carries his thieves' tools and some memento from his home with the giant. At second level, he becomes a first level sorcerer. First level sorcerers choose the sorcerer's origin, and he's taking storm sorcery. His innate magical power was influenced by his storm giant foster parent and living by the sea, and manifests his ability to shape weather. He is a wind speaker, gaining the language primordial that is spoken by elementals and other creatures from the elemental planes, and he has tempestuous magic. When he casts a spell of first level or higher, gusts of wind swirl around him, allowing him to fly 10 feet without provoking attacks of opportunity. In addition to being a good way to avoid melee if he wishes, it also lets him do swashbuckling things like jumping from windows or up to balconies. He gains spellcasting. He has 2 first-level spell slots and knows 4 cantrips and 2 first-level spells from the sorcerer list. For cantrips, he takes Booming Blade, letting him make a melee attack, and a target hit by this attack is trapped in an aura of thunder. If it moves before the start of his next turn, it takes 1d8 thunder damage. At higher levels, this damage will increase. At 5th level, the initial attack deals 1d8 thunder damage, and if they trigger the boom, they take 2d8 thunder damage. And at 11th and 17th level, both effects get an additional d8. Since he won't be getting extra attack, this is going to be his primary melee attack. He takes Ray of Frost. At lower levels, he will do more damage with a thrown dagger or dart, but this cantrip has better range and has the bonus of slowing the target's movement. He also takes Thunderclap, which will damage all adjacent enemies if he finds himself surrounded and doesn't want to cast a spell and fly to safety. Lastly, he takes Gust. We are partly taking this for flavor. He should be able to control the wind, but it's also a useful cantrip. It's kind of like Prestidigitation or Thaumaturgy in the sense that there's probably never going to be a reason that you need it, but if you have it, you'll find lots of creative ways to use it. Just pushing someone 5 feet can come in handy, as can the ability to shove objects around. It is important to note that even though the spell can only push creatures 5 feet or objects 10 feet, the spell has a range of 30 feet, so he can use it on creatures or objects from a safe distance, and when they aren't expecting it. It can also do a variety of little effects, like rustling leaves to create a distraction or slamming shutters. For spells, he takes Chromatic Orb. It can deal lightning, thunder, or cold damage, which suits his storm theme. If necessary, it can also do other damage types, but he doesn't really care about that. For his second, he takes Ice Knife, which is a ranged attack that deals piercing damage, but also has an area of effect of cold damage. Ranged area of effect spells are rare at first level, so this is definitely worth having. When he has reached adulthood, he thinks it's time for him to go out and experience the world. The cove where the storm giant made its home was far from any port, and they rarely saw any ships. But the giant knew of his desire to be a sailor, and reached out to a friend that the giant referred to as a privateer. She was captain of a vessel that raided merchant ships from the nearby human empire. Some consider piracy to be evil, but the giant was a little more compassionate in his assessment. He told our hero that while the privateers did engage in piracy, the human empire was cruel and wicked. The ships the privateers raided were carrying goods extorted from conquered nations, and the privateers returned much of this wealth to the people it was stolen from. The human empire also engaged in slavery, and the privateers had liberated many slave ships and given the slaves their freedom. Our hero has had the opportunity to study the history of his people, and knew that they were once enslaved, and he felt that liberating slaves was a noble occupation. At third level, he becomes a second level sorcerer, gaining Font of Magic, which are sorcery points that he can use to create extra spell slots. Later, he will get an additional way to use these points, and when he does, he can also convert spell slots into extra sorcery points. He gains a third first-level spell slot and can learn another spell of first level, and he chooses Silvery Barbs. It's a reaction that he can use to protect and empower himself or others. As a Githzeri, he also gains a shield spell and can cast it once per day without using a spell slot. The ship arrives at the Giant's Cove, and our hero meets the captain. She is a strong woman with long black hair and gold earrings in each ear. She greets him with a hearty handshake and tells him she will pleased to have a weather witch on board, and that any friend of the giant was a friend of hers. They set out to sea, and he was given a position on the night watch and was to study with the navigator and keep watch for storms. At 4th level, he becomes a 3rd level sorcerer, gaining Metamagic. He can now use his sorcery points to alter the effects of his magic. He gains 2 Metamagic options, and he chooses Twin Spell and Quicken Spell. Twin Spell lets him create a copy of a spell he casts. The spell must only be capable of targeting a single creature, and it can't have a range of self. It costs 1 sorcery point per level of the spell it copies. Cantrips also cost 1 point. He will want to use this with Booming Blade. Now there's some dispute as to whether the spell can be twinned because it is listed as having a range of self. But Jeremy Crawford, a designer at Wizards who answers game questions, says that since it targets one creature that isn't the caster, it can be twinned. And that's how we use it in our game. Since a melee attack is part of casting the spell, this will effectively give him 2 attacks with his rapier for 1 sorcery point. If your DM doesn't allow this to be twinned, he can get a similar effect using Quicken Spell. He can also use this with other spells and cantrips like Ray of Frost or Chromatic Orb. There is another rules question if he wants to use this with Ice Knife. Some argue that since it has an area effect, it can't be twinned, but the spell description specifically says that it targets a single creature, and the area of effect is an additional effect of the spell, so it should be twinnable. Quicken Spell allows him to spend 2 sorcery points to change the spell's casting time from 1 action to 1 bonus action. The rules state that you can't cast a spell of level 1 or higher with your action and your bonus action, so this won't let you cast 2 leveled spells in the same round, but you can cast 2 cantrips or a leveled spell and a cantrip. Technically, this could let him cast a Twin Booming Blade and then another with his bonus action, but this isn't usually the most efficient use of his sorcery points. And the Aura Booming Blade doesn't stack, so multiple hits on the same opponent aren't as useful as hitting multiple opponents. He gets a 4th 1st level spell slot and 2 2nd level spell slots and can learn a spell of 2nd level. He chooses Rhyme's Binding Ice, which creates a cone of cold damage that can also immobilize creatures damaged by it. This spell is a great use of Quicken Spell, letting him cast it with a bonus action, freeze enemies, then use his tempestuous magic to fly over to one and attack with Booming Blade. At 5th level, he becomes a 4th level sorcerer, getting an ability score improvement or feat. Sequana 25 requested the character have the lucky feat, and it's definitely worth it. He has 3 luck points that he can spend when he makes an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, and roll an additional dice and choose which one to use. He can choose to do this after he rolls the first dice, but before the DM says whether it succeeds. He can also spend one when someone makes an attack roll against him, and roll a d20 and choose which dice the opponent uses. This is an excellent feat, and it suits the sort of swashbuckling hero we are trying to make. He learns another cantrip, and he takes Lightning Lure. It has a range of 15 feet, and the target makes a strength save or is pulled 10 feet towards him, and if it ends up within 5 feet of him, it takes 1d8 lightning damage. Actually 2d8, because his cantrips improve at this level. Ray of Frost and Lightning Lure deal 2d8 damage, Thunderclap deals 2d6 to all adjacent enemies, and Booming Blade deals a d8 to the target and 2d8 if they trigger the boom. The attack with a rapier now deals 1d8 plus his dexterity modifier, plus 1d8 thunder damage from Booming Blade, 1d6 lightning damage from Storm Strike, and possibly 1d6 sneak attack, so pretty effective. He also gets a 3rd 2nd level spell slot and can learn another spell of up to 2nd level, and he takes Blur. He doesn't use his concentration for much yet, and this is an excellent defense. He will be getting some concentration spells at higher levels, so retraining this for Mirror Image at some point might be useful. As a Githzeri, he also gets Detect Thoughts as a spell known and can cast it once per day without using a spell slot. He sails with the privateers for many years and has many adventures. He found that they didn't call themselves privateers, they proudly proclaimed themselves to be pirates. But as the giant told him, they only preyed on imperial ships. Many of the crew members were former slaves or others who had been victims of the Empire. He has become an important member of the crew, taking over as navigator after the former navigator retired to an island with enough treasure to live comfortably for the rest of his life.
At 6th level, he becomes a 5th level sorcerer. He gains 2 3rd level spell slots and can learn a spell of up to 3rd level. The obvious choice is Lightning Bolt, and it's probably the best one for him, but Tidal Wave is also a good option, dealing less damage but having a better area of effect and the ability to knock enemies prone. At 7th level, he becomes a 6th level sorcerer, gaining Heart of the Storm. When he casts a spell of first level or higher that deals lightning or thunder damage, stormy magic erupts from him, dealing his choice of lightning or thunder damage equal to half his sorcerer level to creatures of his choice within 10 feet. He also gains Storm Guide. If it's raining, he can cause the rain to stop in a 20-foot sphere centered on himself. And if it is windy, he can control the direction of the wind in a 100-foot area centered on himself. This is a particularly useful ability for a sailor, guaranteeing fair winds. He gains another 3rd level spell slot and can learn a spell of up to 3rd level. And he takes Fly. It is always useful to be able to fly and is appropriate for a guy who can control the wind. His time on the ship has not only sharpened his magic but made him a better swordsman. He has become agile and light on his feet, able to effortlessly move around a battlefield. At 8th level, he becomes a 2nd level rogue, gaining cunning action, allowing him to dash, disengage, or hide as a bonus action. This makes him much more mobile, especially combined with tempestuous magic. At 9th level, he becomes a 3rd level rogue, getting his roguish archetype, and he becomes a swashbuckler. He gains rakish audacity. He can add his charisma modifier to his initiative, allowing him to respond quickly to threats. He also gains another way to use sneak attack. He doesn't need advantage on the target if the target is within 5 feet and no other creatures are within 5 feet of him. With his excellent mobility, it isn't hard to set that up. His sneak attack also improves to 2d6. He also has fancy footwork. If he makes a melee attack against the creature, it can't make attacks of opportunity against him until the end of his turn. This further improves his already excellent mobility. At 10th level, he becomes a 4th level rogue, gaining ability score improvement or a feat, and he takes Soul of the Storm Giant feat. This feat is from Bigby's Glory of Giants, allowing him to increase his strength, constitution, or charisma by 1 point, and he chooses charisma. It also gives him Maelstrom Aura. As a bonus action, he can surround himself in an aura of wind and lightning that extends 10 feet from him in all directions. While in this aura, he has resistance to lightning and thunder damage, and attack rolls against him have disadvantage. Also, he can cause any creature that starts its turn in the aura to make a strength saving throw with a DC of 8 plus his proficiency and charisma modifier. If it fails, its speed is halved until the start of its next turn. This aura lasts until the start of his next turn or until he is incapacitated, and he can use this aura a number of times per day equal to his proficiency modifier. At 11th level, he becomes a 5th level rogue, gaining Uncanny Dodge. When he takes damage, he can use his reaction to take half damage instead. His sneak attack also improves here to 3d6. At 12th level, he becomes a 7th level sorcerer, gaining a 4th level spell slot and can learn a spell of up to 4th level. He chooses Storm Sphere. This creates a 20-foot radius sphere of whirling air centered on a point he chooses within 150 feet. The sphere lasts for up to a minute depending on concentration, and any creature in the sphere when it appears or starts its turn in the sphere takes 2d6 bludgeoning damage, unless they make a strength saving throw. And he can use a bonus action on each of his turns to fire a lightning bolt at a creature within 60 feet of the center of the sphere. If the target is within the sphere, he has advantage on the attack roll. If the bolt hits, it deals 4d6 damage, and creatures within the sphere have disadvantage on perception checks involving hearing. This is a fun spell. Getting ongoing damage and a bonus action attack on every turn is great. Not being able to move the sphere is a little bit of a drawback, but it has a large area and the lightning bolts have good range, so it isn't too much of a problem. At 13th level, he becomes an 8th level sorcerer, getting an ability score improvement or a feat, and he takes the Fey Touched feat. This allows him to increase his charisma to 18, and he gains the Misty Step spell and a 1st level enchantment or divination spell that he can cast once for free and with any spell slot he has. For the 1st level spell, he takes Dissonant Whispers. This spell causes the target to take psychic damage and uses its reaction to move away from the caster. This movement provokes attacks of opportunity, allowing our hero to get an attack in, possibly adding sneak attack. He gains another 4th level spell slot and can learn a spell of up to 4th level, and he chooses Dimension Door.
Our hero and his crew have been on the run. The Empire, having grown tired of the predations, has sent a fleet but led by a powerful wizard to destroy the pirates. Our hero uses his power to keep the winds in his ship favor, allowing him to stay ahead of the enemy fleet, except for the flagship commanded by the wizard. The two ships were locked in battle. Our hero flew into the air to engage the wizard in battle, trading blasts of cold and lightning against the wizard and his ship. The wizard responded with terrible blasts of psychic force, but our hero, unbeknownst to the wizard, was little affected by such magic. Despite this, he knew he was no match for the wizard's power. His captain called out to him magically to return to the ship, and as soon as he touched the deck, he felt the ship move through the wall between worlds. One moment he was on the open ocean, and the next he was drifting in a void with flickering stars off in the distance. He went straight to the captain to find what has happened, and she told him that she used an item of magic that she had captured many years ago. She had never used it because the wizard that had been the former navigator told her it was dangerous and would transport her to the astral sea with no way of return. It also had the power to propel the ship through the astral sea, but needed a spellcaster of power to operate it. The captain asked our hero to take the helm and guide them until they could find a way home. At 14th level, he becomes a 6th level rogue and gains expertise in 2 more skills, and he chooses Intimidation and Investigation. At 15th level, he becomes a 7th level rogue, gaining Evasion. When he makes a dexterity saving throw to take half damage, he instead takes no damage, and if he fails, he only takes half damage. His sneak attack also improves to 4d6. At 16th level, he becomes an 8th level rogue, getting another ability score improvement or feat, and he increases his dexterity to 18. Traveling through space on the astral sea, they encountered foes that were perhaps worse than the ones they had fled from. His people's ancient enemies, the Mind Flayers, were a powerful presence here, as were a race of insect-like creatures called the Nyogi that traded in slaves. His captain, being who she was, insisted on attacking their ships, liberating their wealth and freeing their slaves. Many great battles were fought, and many strange creatures joined the crew. Thrycreen, that were humanoid praying mantises, Hadozi, which were similar to monkeys but intelligent and had wings to glide with, and a large hippopotamus-like soldier who used a strange weapon that boomed like thunder and fired lead balls that caused devastating wounds. Our hero had advanced to the position of first mate and had mastered the skills of command, knowing how to lead his crew in battle and gain their loyalty. At 17th level, he becomes a 9th level rogue, gaining Panache, becoming extremely charismatic. As an action, he can make a persuasion check opposed by the target's insight. If he wins and the target is hostile to him, it has disadvantage on attacks against anyone but him, and can't make opportunity attacks against anyone else. This lasts for 1 minute or until one of his allies attacks or casts a spell at the target. With our hero's maneuverability and skill at dueling, he can keep a powerful foe occupied while his crew finishes off its minions. If the target is not hostile to him, it is charmed for 1 minute and regards our hero as a friendly acquaintance. It ends if he or any of his companions does anything to harm the creature. Unlike magical charms, the subject does not realize it was charmed and does not become hostile, so if our hero treats it well and is persuasive, it could remain friendly long after the duration ends. His sneak attack improves to 5d6, and his cantrips improve for a final time. Ray of Frost and Lightning Lure deal 4d8 damage, Thunderclap does 4d6 to all adjacent enemies, and Booming Blade does 3d8 to the target and 4d8 if it triggers the boom. At this point, he can attack with Booming Blade, dealing 1d8 plus his dexterity modifier with his rapier, 1d6 from Storm Strike, 5d6 from Sneak Attack, and 3d8 from Booming Blade. And he can also twin it for another d8 plus dex with the rapier and another 3d8 thunder damage. Then, as a Swashbuckler, he can move away without provoking attacks of opportunity, forcing the target to take 4d8 more damage from Booming Blade if they wish to pursue him. He could also throw a dagger for 1d4 plus dex piercing damage and 5d6 sneak attack, then quicken a ranged spell or cantrip for more damage. At 18th level, he becomes a 10th level rogue, getting another ability score improvement or feat, and he's going to increase his constitution to 16. Despite his many ways to reduce or prevent damage, he can still use more hit points, and he uses enough concentration spells that he needs to improve his constitution saves. At 19th level, he becomes an 11th level rogue, getting reliable talent. Whenever he makes an ability check that uses proficiency, he can treat a roll of 9 or lower as a 10, and his sneak attack improves to 66. At long last, our hero, his captain, and crew had found their way back to the crystal sphere that contained their home. Using a device they had acquired, they passed through the sphere and set course for their homeworld. Their crew was now seasoned warriors, and they had added many mighty individuals to their crew. Their ship is armed with bombards and other weapons of great power. They are home and ready to once again take the fight to the Empire, and this time they intend to bring the Empire down. First, however, they need a port to call home, and the cove where his foster father makes his home will serve nicely. At 20th level, he becomes a 12th level rogue, getting another ability score improvement or feat, and he increases his charisma to 20. Dexterity would also be a good choice, but Charisma strengthens his casting and helps his persuasion, so it's slightly more useful. I think this character has a lot going for it. Even without using spells, he is a strong fighter in melee and at range. He has a number of abilities to prevent or reduce damage. With both the Lucky Feet and Silvery Barbs, he can manipulate fate in his favor, and he has a variety of spells to deal area of effect damage. He is also a very good leader and adept in social situations. He also has expertise in perception and investigation, making him adept at spotting traps and ambushes, and he has thieves' tools to disarm those traps. We hope this lived up to Sequana 25's expectations, and we hope you all enjoyed it, and will tell us about it in the comments along with any questions, suggestions, or build ideas. And join us next week when we continue our exploration of Bigby's Glory of the Giants. Until then, cheers.